I'm Janet Jones and I'm pleased to bring you the Good Grief Conversation on UK Health Radio. The idea for the Good Grief Conversation came to me shortly after losing my 22-year-old son Murray, when I needed to find answers. At the lowest and darkest time of my life, I desperately needed to speak to people who had not only survived losing a child, but who had found happiness and joy too. I discovered I wasn't the only one in pain. People lose loved ones every day. Yet the only conversation I could find was how time was a great healer. I needed to hear a lot more than that. So welcome to the Good Grief Conversation here on UK Health Radio. If, like me, you've suffered trauma in your life, you will know that you have a life before the event and a new life after. Now, what went before cannot be any longer because the balance and the content of your life has irrevocably changed. Now, I'd just like to have a few moments to share a little bit about my life before the 14th of July 2019. That was the last day of my life as a mother of 3 young adults who were all making their way happily in the world. In 2011, I set up a personal development business called Happiness Millionaire. I used to run seminars and do training workshops, helping people to find greater happiness. I'm also the author of an Amazon 5-star rated book on happiness called Happiness Millionaire: Positive Images for a Rich and Powerful Life. And just before life unrecognisably changed, I had launched a handbag that I'd designed that would help women to eat better, feel better, and live better. My children were very, very proud of all of my achievements. At that moment in time, life was great and it was so full of promise. It was the Wimbledon men's finals weekend and Federer and Djokovic were fighting it out for the trophy once again. My daughter was visiting from London and both of my sons were in Edinburgh for a family celebration. We were all in a really happy place. I remember even chinking glasses when my daughter and I were watching Wimbledon. We were, as everyone else should be, drinking some Prosecco with strawberries and just having a really beautiful time. And I can remember us chinking glasses, thinking this is such a special moment. In the evening, I waved my daughter off at the train station to go back to London, and I went home. Actually, I went home to finish off watching the tennis because it went on for so long. But by evening time, I went into my usual routine of sort of planning for my coming week and doing my gratitude journal. So I was completing my usual chores once I'd tucked myself up in bed, and then I turned off the light, and just before going to sleep, as always, I would feel grateful for my children, for my health, and for everyone safely getting through another day. Then my son Lewis called to say that Murray had been in a climbing accident. Life stood still. I knew this was serious. If I'm honest, I probably knew he had gone. I'd raised my children to be outdoors children, so we did all kinds of things from kayaking, camping. I even taught them to climb as they were growing up. So my children were brought up with outdoor adventure. And Murray, he had just discovered this passion of climbing as an adult, really, and he was truly dedicated to it. All he wanted to do was to become a climbing instructor, and he had become a really excellent climber. Tragically, on the 14th of July 2019, just before 10 p.m, as the sun went down over the city of Edinburgh, my son took a big fall from Arthur's Seat due to the rock crumbling around his climbing equipment. As he fell, so did we. As his life ended, so did ours, our life as we knew it. After the 14th of July, I lost the part of me that wanted to save the world. My new job was to save my world. And at the time, I honestly wondered if I did actually know anything about happiness. And I wondered if I could ever be happy again. The teacher had to become the student again. And this student has a lot of questions. You will find the Good Grief conversations to be honest, gritty, emotional, and inspirational. Though this isn't a program where I tell you all is great, just jump up and down and sing songs and all will be fabulous again, and nor is it a program about the pursuit of happiness, as if happiness is a destination and all will be well when you get there. And nor will I ever tell you that time is a great healer. Because now I've met many people who have lost children, and some are very much stuck at the moment of pain and loss. After loss, when you are strong enough, it is essential to take different actions in order to transition your new life, your new normal, whatever normal is, and maybe that's a conversation for another time. My guests of the Good Grief conversation will help and inspire you to know what changes and different actions would be helpful for you to take. By the end of each episode, you will have new tools that you can try, and you will feel more inspired to make your new life better. You can also get more information from my guests, plus gifts and resources, by signing up to the podcast extras. To register for that, just go to www.thegoodgriefconversation.com. That is thegoodgriefconversation.com. So now let's talk happiness. I know if you are in the grip of grief right now, you are also likely to be wondering how you will ever become happy again. Will life now just plod along? Will you ever experience great joy again? Well, together we will discover the answers to all of these. But here are my thoughts on happiness. You see, for me, I think happiness needs redefining. Looking back on the strategies and principles of happiness I taught, all of which I stand by, there is just one element missing, and that is the space for sadness. True happiness is not absent of sadness. True happiness, I believe, is an acceptance of the whole of life experiences. Denying the sad and difficult times of life in order to continually pursue the positive, upbeat happiness that is portrayed doesn't create space for the love that can be found in sadness. Sadness isn't something to avoid or brush under the carpet. It is something to give love to. True happiness, I believe, is a courageous love of life in its entire colour. Grief is a very personal journey, and for my journey, it has been like swimming in the ocean alone. I remember in the early stages the big tidal waves of emotion that would knock me down to the ground, pushing me under as it crushed me, and I would just have to hope that I could hold on tight until the jarring, stabbing pain had released its grip on me so I could come up for air once more. I never knew when they were coming, but they were always when I was on my own. Then there are the times as if you're just treading water. You kind of feel okay, but all you can do is keep your head above water. And then the day will come when you feel strong enough to swim with the current of the ocean. The waves, they still come, and they usually are when you're alone. And they may push you under for a little while, but not with the same intensity as the tidal waves. Sometimes you just have to swim with it. Through the Good Grief conversations, I don't only want to discover how to swim better with grief, but how to swim better in life. Where there is loss, there is opportunity for new life. And I believe that my guests will help us find the strength, wisdom, and inspiration for a new life. In fact, a more enriched life. You see, pain is created when we don't have our expectations met, which is why grief doesn't only show up at the loss of a loved one. Grief is a companion to any loss, such as a job, a business, a divorce, and even children growing up and leaving home. Basically, where there is loss, there is grief. But of course, they all bring different intensities with them. What does happen around all loss and grief is that there is the ending of something, which means that life has changed. And your expectations, they have been dashed, and your dreams too. When we lost Murray, there wasn't only the physical losing of my son and my children's brother. There was the loss of the hopes and the dreams. There's the loss of the conversation around him. There's the loss of future life celebrations and all life's promises. And not only that, there's the loss of yourself too. Because the person who you were also no longer exists. So this grief actually travels quite a long way. Again, through my guests, I am not an expert. It's a journey that I've been on. But through the Good Grief conversations, my intention is to bring in the people who understand this more and can guide us and lead us even better. You see, when things like this happen to you, just like I was not prepared for this, but you may not be prepared for your change either. And then you go through a period of feeling in shock, lost, alone, afraid, angry and sad, and they all can come piling in all at once. The thing is, these are all perfectly natural feelings. They do not constitute an illness. They may feel like it though. I remember with Murray how I could barely move my body around. It felt so heavy. I felt like I always referred to it as the Cloak of Grief and the weight of the Cloak of Grief. It took all I had just to stand up and move around. And my bones and my muscles, I felt like I had been run over by a truck. And I used to think, if this wound was visible, I would never be expected to even get out of my bed, let alone go and drive the car or go to a supermarket to get myself groceries. But the thing is, it is an invisible life experience. But it's important also to remember that these feelings and what you're going through is all part of the transition to your next life, to your next chapter. And to discover your next enriched life means that you need to change, or you get stuck in the experience of the pain. Now, together, we are going to discover many ways to make changes that will lead to joy and happiness. And you and I, we deserve that. They say the darkest hour is just before dawn. And where there is darkness, there is always light. Even in my situation, I sometimes feel a sense of light. It seems to break through and then close over and then breaks through a little more. I remember A couple of days before my birthday, I was walking through the streets of Manchester, and I had a very strange sensation run through me. I knew it wasn't a bad feeling, but I didn't really understand what it was, and I immediately wrote this on my phone. I don't know what is happening. I sense a flutter feeling inside me, and I feel I can see light, and it feels like that light will guide me through life. I feel a sense of courage and hope. Now, I don't really understand this, and I don't know what to make of this. I do believe that we are part of something bigger, but I've no idea what that looks like. But it does bring me comfort to believe that Murray is now part of this something bigger. And maybe he does have the power to guide his family and me, making life just a little easier on us. What I intend to do on the Good Grief Conversation, I intend to find these people who claim to have a deeper knowledge and a deeper understanding of these kinds of experiences. I don't know where they will come from yet. I will be honest about that. Maybe the universe is going to bring them to me. But I will find these people. And I'll be perfectly honest. My biggest question is, where is my son? And you may have that question too. Let's see if we can find an answer. Now, Murray isn't the only trauma in my life. In 1994, age 30, I was 7 months pregnant with my son Lewis, and my dad took his life. I never took any actions to heal or seek counselling. I was just expected to get on with life, and it wasn't long before the outside world, to them, it was forgotten. Life goes on, and you're just expected to go on too. It was never forgotten to me, though, but the pain got tucked away, and it started to rot me on the inside. I remember feeling like two people. The mother of, well, by then, 3 young children. Murray was with us. And this mother, she kept home and made life fun for everyone. But then there was the broken woman on the inside. And in time, this would reveal itself as vertigo, physical pains in my limbs, and eventually a breakdown. And that was when I began to learn the happiness techniques that started to turn my life around completely. The knowledge really made a difference. But until then, this heartbreak would show up as anger and resentment towards the people I loved the most. I didn't know these were connected until I began to change. Funny, just the other day, I heard this Chinese proverb. I wish I'd heard it many years ago. And it says, if you are patient in one moment of anger, you will avoid 100 days of sorrow. How true. See, when I lost Dad, I was angry. The little girl in me felt betrayed. I didn't know what grief was or what I should do with it and how it would change my life. Instead, it just sent me off in a spin, an internal spin, because I felt the outside world didn't want that from me, so I kept it inside for many years. In 2012, during my very first Happiness Millionaire Motivation event, my mum unexpectedly died of pneumonia. It came on very quickly, and she was free of this world within 2 hours, after just seeing lots of friends and having a really fun afternoon. It was wonderful to hear those stories of the laughter that she had had, but it did come as a huge surprise. Now, Mum was 84, so we had Mum for a long time, but still, it's your mum. And it hurt to lose Mum, but by now I knew some happiness tools that would help, and the main tool was gratitude. So in my sad moments, I would turn in my mind to gratitude, and the gratitude of my life with Mum, and Mum being my mum. She was a wonderful woman. And I would feel grateful for all the love and compassion that she gave me in my life and the lessons that she taught me. And I do remember feeling at that time, because then, I was an orphan, but I remember feeling that I was at the top of the tree, and there was a sense of pride in that. It was my turn to lead my little troops by example, as Mum had led me and my sisters and brother, and hopefully that they will go on to lead a great life and continue the chain, being an example to their children too. Then the worst day of all came, when I lost my youngest troop. Then I was really lost. It was like a nuclear bomb had gone off in my life, and all I was left with was debris. It was up to me to find what was still alive, and I'm honest, I'm still looking. People ask me, how do I get up in the morning? How do I keep going? Sometimes I wonder that myself. But I remember just fairly recently, actually, my sister asked me if I had read my own book. She reminded me that I had written a book to help people in my situation. And it's funny, because when I did lose Murray, it was the first thing that came to my mind, really, was, have I written rubbish? Do I really know what I'm talking about? And the first principle that I teach to happiness is desire. And at the time, I thought, but my only desire is to have my son back. And how could this now be relevant? How could desire even be relevant when my world has been completely blasted apart? And I was unsure if I ever wanted to desire anything ever again. It was like everything I knew had disappeared. So I guess looking at those principles now, sort of 9.5 months on, desire actually is the first principle to happiness. It is the beginning of everything. And I guess my first desire is to be alive. My first desire is to live and to eventually find a really beautiful way of living, because, we still have a lot to live for, and this would be what Murray would want also. But it takes strength and courage to actually get there, and it takes time. Now, one thing I have discovered actually about grief is, you can't compare yourself to others because it is so individual. It's really important to stay in your lane. Learn the things that are relevant to you. Take the actions that are relevant to you. Everyone's situation is very different. Be careful who you listen to, but always remember, don't compare yourself to others. If you think, but their life looks fine now, that's not always the truth. We're all very good actors. After a while with Murray, when I realised that I kept breathing and waking up each day, my brain began to seek information for how to understand all of this and how to make some sort of sense and find guidance. I remember reading a book called Option B by Sheryl Sandberg. It was actually my daughter who bought it for me and sent it to me. And in the early days, it was just too soon. This is what I mean about be vigilant with yourself. Take care of yourself, and things come in at the right time. But eventually it was the right time to read Sheryl Sandberg's book, and it's brilliant. She's in fact on my guest wish list, so I will be getting in touch. Her story is that her husband suddenly died of a heart attack in a gym, and her book is about how she couldn't have option A, which is her husband back and her family whole again, so she should make the most of option B. Now, my option B was where I had to start with my desire. I don't fully see what option B is just yet, but at least now I can see that there is an option B. But like I said earlier, the first part of that, the first step to that had to be the desire to live again. And I'll be honest, there were times that I didn't want to. Living alone with this pain was just too much. But I had to focus on the desire to live first. So when the pain got too much, it's like you just have to change your focus. I will figure out what that looks like when the time is right. And to be honest, this experience has made me live more in the moment than I've ever lived before, because the past is now gone. And my future, I don't know what it looks like. I can't even imagine what it looks like. So I stay in the moment. And I'll be honest, it's not so bad, I've read millions of books about living in the now. But I didn't get it until right now. So now is good. Another thing that I have found really helpful, and it is actually the third principle in my system to happiness that I write about in my book, and that is that the language that we use in our minds. Now, when we're in the darkness, now this is a good idea for all of your life, but absolutely essential when you are alone in your heart with grief, and that is lots of good self-talk. It's about being supportive of yourself. Tell yourself when you've done something good. In fact, I often say, well done, Jan, you washed the dishes. It's as simple as that. So say well done to yourself. Things like when you get out of bed or when you've had a shower. All these little celebrations are really important. And then at night, go through what you did well that day. It doesn't matter what you didn't do well. If you focus on what went well, then other things, they just take care of themselves. And you also end up creating more things that go well, because that's where you're putting your focus. So, things like today, right? I ate 4 cakes. Well, so what? I got out of bed when I really felt very sad and not wanting to face another day alone. We're currently in isolation due to the COVID-19 virus. And I could easily have curled up and stayed there. But I didn't. I fought it. I went for a walk. I've made this broadcast. I ate a healthy lunch, did my laundry. That was a good day. Yes, I did have tears today, and that is okay. Let the sadness through and then keep moving. Just if you stay focused on the pain, once it has moved through you, it will keep you there. Change the focus. Make yourself do other things. Now, I know right in the early stages of grief, and if that grief is really severe, it's difficult to do any of this. At that point, just keep getting up in the morning and do this later. Now, it does take effort. And it does require encouraging self-talk. So do remember to congratulate yourself when you do the smallest of things. See, no one else can do this for you. No one can save you. Not so long ago, I realized that the cavalry isn't coming. It is up to us as individuals to change this. But I am here, and this broadcast is here. You can also reach me anytime on janet@thegoodgriefconversation.com. But we've got your back, and I'm sure you've got mine. So if you're like me and your life has just had the rug pulled from under your feet, I am going to bring people with answers and how you can get through this period of your life so that you can get stronger sooner and go on living with joy in your heart. Now, because of the work that I was doing previously as a speaker and a writer, I have come across some amazing people over the past 10 years, and many of them have said that they will come on to this program with me and share some of their knowledge with you and help you to turn life around, become more inspired and find life's golden nuggets. And one of those people is Dr. David Hamilton. He's a very successful Hay House author, and he's got over 11 books under his belt. He's a scientist, and he has discovered the scientific power of kindness and how that affects you in a physiological kind of way, and also the effects that kindness has on the environment that you find yourself in. Many years ago, he introduced me to the Lovingkindness Meditation. And it's a wonderful meditation because it isn't only about loving kindness for yourself. It's about loving kindness for the people who you are close to, your family and friends. Then it goes on to loving kindness for people all over the world, and then for all sentient beings. So this is the loving kindness meditation. May I be happy. May I be safe. May I be healthy, peaceful, and strong. And then you repeat that 3 times. And then you go to your loved ones. So for me, I do that for Iona, Lewis, and Murray. So may Iona, Lewis, and Murray be happy. May Iona, Lewis, and Murray be safe. May Iona, Lewis, and Murray be healthy, peaceful, and strong. And then you go on to your family and friends. Now, obviously, if you've got somebody who's close to you, who they are struggling, or somebody that you hold a special place in your heart, a friend that needs some extra kindness, then you can add another level in here. These are just guidelines. I mean, I could do this all day long. So then you say that about your friends and family. May my friends and family be happy. May my friends and family be safe. May my friends and family be healthy, peaceful, and strong. Again, 3 times. And then you go on to all the people around the world. So may everyone around the world be happy. May everyone around the world be safe. May everyone around the world be healthy, peaceful, and strong. Again, repeat that 3 times. And then you go on to all the sentient beings, the birds, the bees, all these things that, make us truly happy. When we touch on nature, it brings such fulfillment. So we want to pass the kindness onto that level also. So may all the sentient beings be happy. May all the sentient beings be safe. May all the sentient beings be healthy, peaceful, and strong. Again, 3 times. Now, I do a lot of that with using breath also. So the loving kindness meditation, it kind of produces an energy from you that goes out to all of the world. And that energy is the energy that comes back at you. So it's a wonderful thing to do to keep your mind calm and to keep yourself centered. It certainly helped me an awful lot just recently. What I'm going to do in the podcast extras, I'm going to create a resource for that. So I will write that all out and put a little video together that explains it in greater detail. If you would like that and you'd like more podcast extras, then, do go to www.thegoodgriefconversation.com and just sign up for the podcast extras. You'll find all kinds of things in there. And as this program develops, then more resources will be put in there also. So David Hamilton is he'll be a fantastic guest. In fact, I think it was about a year ago, a little bit more, I was doing some small videos about happiness that would go on YouTube, and I interviewed David then about kindness. So now that conversation can be extended to how does kindness have an impact on your life when things have started to go wrong. I'm sure it will be a really, really powerful conversation. And another wonderful guest I have coming up is Jenny Tichy. Jenny is a nutritionist and a food psychologist, and she's also the author of 4 books on nutrition, plus she is the creator of The Lunchbox Doctor and a regular guest on Breakfast TV in the UK. In January, Jenny and we met up, and I thought it would go on for about an hour. But 4 hours later, plus dinner and a glass of wine, I felt so inspired by her. In fact, we both agreed that we were new best friends. So I am sure that you will find her equally inspiring and very knowledgeable and have some great information for you. What I discovered was when this happened to me, I sought food as a comfort. I live on my own and my fridge kind of became, I suppose, my best friend. And it wasn't always good food that I put in. I craved carbohydrates because carbohydrates give you an instant kind of release from your pain. But what they also do is they make you put weight on. And I've put on just about a stone in weight. And for my international listeners, I'm not sure what that is in pounds. I know it's just over 6 kilograms. Anyway, it's quite a large amount of weight, and I'm quite small, so I really feel it, and it pulls my energy down, and I know that it isn't a good thing. So we've got Jenny coming on to give us some information about the kind of things that we can do when you feel low and crave food. What can we actually do? And another important thing that we're going to talk about is we're going to talk about food addiction and how that can change. We will talk about why some people also lose an incredible amount of weight at times of loss. And in the past, that has happened to me, but not with Murray. And we will discuss, possibly why that happened also. So we're going to look at the kind of things that, we can make and maybe store. But the other really important thing to look at, well, certainly what happened to me, which I am exceptionally grateful for, a lot of people brought food for me, and that was absolutely fantastic. What Jenny and I are going to talk about is if you are in the position where you've got a friend or a loved one who is going through the grieving process, the kind of things that you can take them, the kind of things that will actually help them as well as just keep them fed and keeping them going and keeping them upright. So those things are really important to cover. That's certainly been a really big part of my journey. And I personally would like to start turning that around now. So I'm really looking forward to having Jenny on and having a good conversation with her. And once again, we will create recipes and things that will be in the podcast extras too. The other thing that I discovered was learning about receiving. I'm more of a giver kind of person. I found receiving really difficult, and I had to surrender to receiving, largely because I also didn't have anything to give. And there were some amazing people around. I've got incredible friends who were giving, and one of those friends was actually my yoga teacher. In fact, 2 yoga teachers, and one in particular, a guy called Dave. He just said to me, look, come to my classes. I don't want any money. He said that, yoga is really important for you right now, and I don't want money to get in the way. This is what I mean about receiving. You see, I'm not a good receiver. I get all emotional at the thought of receiving. And so Dave did that for me, and I could go anytime I liked to any of his classes. I didn't always make it. Sometimes I just got to the door and I drove away. It was better when I had somebody I could meet there, and a good friend of mine used to do that as often as she could too. But I'm going to get Dave on the show because he also teaches breathing techniques and the power of the breath. So I'd really love a good conversation with him about the importance of yoga, movement, and the breath, because they certainly helped me. I didn't do them all the time. There's not always the strength to do these things like in a disciplined way. But what I've discovered looking back is that even just these drops in the ocean, you've got to put the drops in order to create the ocean. And slowly over time, they build up. So I'm really looking forward to having Dave on the show too. I also went to see Reiki people, so I will get people on the program to talk about Reiki and the powers of Reiki and how all that works, because I don't understand how that works. I'm really looking forward to those conversations also. So we've got a great lineup of guests that I'm very excited to share with you and bring them to you. And I would love to hear from you to find out how these guests have helped you, how this new knowledge helps you, or maybe you've shared it with a friend and how that's helped them and how that's turned their lives around also. So that is going to be great to hear from you. I look forward to that very much. I heard a great quote just recently, and it's from Star Wars actually, and it's when Princess Leia says, "Hope is like the sun. If you only believe in it when you can see it, you will never make it through the night. So, let's get this conversation started so that we can see the hope and we can see the sun, and we'll all make it through the night and the sun will definitely shine again. I hope that you join me weekly on UK Health Radio with the Good Grief Conversation. You can download the UK Health app so that you have us available on your phone and all of your devices. You can also go to thegoodgriefconversation.com and you can register for those podcasts that I've been telling you about. And here you will also get more support from my guests, and you'll get all those gifts and resources that I've shared with you today. Many people call this process healing. And to be honest, I haven't really come across a better word. For me, healing indicates that you will get your life back to how it was. Now, if you imagine a broken leg, the healing is about getting it back to functioning as your leg. Well, grief, it isn't like that. It takes you on a journey. In my book, I ask, have you ever had an experience that appears as an unwanted event arriving in your life, unexpected and uninvited, like a meteorite hitting Earth, your Earth? I answer, instantly your landscape changes forever. You may spend years trying to put everything back how it was previously. Only, no matter how hard you try, it can't be put back. And one day you realize that, and your journey begins. Let the journey begin. I will see you every week with new knowledge, inspiration, and wisdom from the amazing guests who are about to come onto this program. I look forward to getting to know you and being part of your life and you being part of mine. You take great care of yourself. I'm Janet Jones, your host of the Good Grief Conversation here on UK Health Radio. Speak to you soon.